It's the last full day of campaigning today. The final day of voting is tomorrow. Democrats banking on high-profile races, governor's races in Virginia and New Jersey, and the New York City mayoral race catching a lot of attention. CNN chief data correspondent Harry Enton is here. There's a real mixed bag here as far as ideologies go, where you've got, moderate candidate in Virginia and you've got a Democratic socialist in New York City. I guess the question is, how can they both be seen as bellwethers? I mean, the common denominator here is Donald Trump, and Democrats are on the precipice of delivering a huge blow to Donald Trump in his second term. What are we talking about here? Well, why don't we just look? Democrats lead all the key races. You go to New Jersey governor. That's really the only close one. Mikey Sherrill, the Democrat, up by 6 points. Abigail Spanberger in Virginia, up by 10. Zohran Mamdani, up by 16 points in New York City. The bottom line is this. Yes, there are ideological differences between the Democrats, but the key common component is they are all going after Donald Trump. And all the Democrats lead, from New Jersey to Virginia to New York City, they all lead the Republican and independent opponents. How much is he impacting the cases? And never mind that they want to beat him. In their minds, it's sort of like, hey, this is to show you that we can beat you. But how much is he affecting these? I mean, look, Donald Trump is a huge drag in all of these races. Look at his net popularity ratings. In New Jersey, he's 11 points underwater. Virginia, 14 points underwater. Not much of a big surprise in New York. He's 35 points underwater. And I will note nationally in my aggregate of polls, he's about 13 points underwater. In our CNN poll, he's way below that, which looks a lot like New Jersey, a lot like Virginia. So these races, in my mind, could be huge bellwethers going into next year to understanding how Donald Trump is impacting these races. He is a huge drag in across the board, New Jersey, Virginia, and New York City. Do these races tell us anything about the midterm as to what happens here and what might happen in the midterm? Yeah, okay. So, I was mentioning, of course, Donald Trump being a huge drag, right? He's at his second term lows, not just in our CNN poll, but across the different polls that we were looking at this weekend. And why is it that these races are so important? Well, go back through history, jump in that DeLorean. Look at what has happened when Democrats sweep New York City, New Jersey, and Virginia governor. They won the U.S. House the next year 5 out of 5 times in the last 90 years. You go all the way back to the FDR administration. So the bottom line is this. When Democrats do well in these off-year elections, when they sweep New Jersey, Virginia, and New York City, historically speaking, that means they go on to win the U.S. House of Representatives the next time around. And when we're in this national polarized environment and Donald Trump is as unpopular as he is, I think that history is likely to hold if, in fact, Democrats do sweep tomorrow, which at this point looks more likely than not. We will have to see. We also have some new polling numbers also that makes Democrats not look so good. So it's kind of like wondering whether this historic norm will stay as per usual. And that, my friend, is why we go 365 years to find out what happens next year. All right. Thank you so much, Harry. Thank you. Okay.
All right, they're talking about Virginia there. Many eyes are on that battle between Democrat Abigail Spanberger and Republican Winsome Earl-Sears. President Obama hit the campaign trail this weekend to try and give Spanberger a boost in this very final stretch.
Abigail's opponent does seem to care a lot about what Trump and his cronies are doing. Virginia, you don't need a governor who puts party and ideology ahead of the people she was elected to serve. You deserve a governor who will think for herself and work for you. You deserve a governor like Abigail Spanberger.
Joining me right now is Larry Sabato, the director for the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia. It's great to see you. So we heard Harry Enton giving his very enthusiastic take, as he always does, Larry. What is the best possible outcome that you see for, let's just start, for the Democratic Party this week?
Well, I've had a little less coffee than Harry, so I would put it this way. Democrats are going to do well. They could have a sweep, at least of the top positions. That's very important. But the midterm elections are a year away. And in the Trump era, hundreds of things will happen in the next year that could affect how people evaluate him and how people evaluate the candidates running. But on the whole, Democrats desperately need this boost of enthusiasm and success.
So President Trump says the government shutdown could be ended if Republicans take the, quote, nuclear option of ending the filibuster. Trump told 60 Minutes, quote, the Republicans have to get tougher. If we end the filibuster, we can do exactly what we want. He also posted about that desire on Truth Social. The move is something Senate Majority Leader John Thune has said he's unwilling to do. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has until noon today to update a federal judge who ruled last week the Agriculture Department must disperse SNAP benefits after nearly 42 million Americans lost benefits on Saturday because of the shutdown. A Rhode Island judge says the administration must either make a full SNAP payment by the end of the day today or a partial payment by Wednesday after the White House reversed a plan to use a $5 billion contingency plan to keep the program running. They have the money. Over 42 million Americans rely on SNAP, and the shutdown has led to long lines at food banks and emergency food distribution centers. Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins says the contingency fund won't even cover about half of November's SNAP needs. Yesterday, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said SNAP payments could be made as soon as Wednesday, but that the government had to figure out what the process is to make such payments.
You know, Claire McCaskill, a lot to talk about there, and we're going to be going to new polling very soon that show most Americans do blame Donald Trump and the Republican Party for the shutdown. But before we get there, just let's talk about the filibuster for a second. One of the reasons why John Thune's saying, we don't want to go there. It seems every time a party's in power, they say there are some people that say they want to end the filibuster. It happened when Joe Biden was in power. It happened when Donald Trump was in power before coming from Donald Trump. He's saying it again. And yet the Republicans, this does seem to be one area where they understand that turnabout's fair play, and what they do unto the Democrats will soon do unto them.
Yeah, I think people need to remember that the Senate is one place you can't gerrymander, which means we are always going to have states where the power will go back and forth. Look at a state like Pennsylvania, where you have Josh Shapiro, a really strong Democratic governor, but Bob Casey lost in Pennsylvania to McCormick, and that's what helped the Senate get its majority. Well, Pennsylvania is still Pennsylvania, and going forward, there's a good chance that Democrats could win back that seat. Same thing in Ohio, same thing in other states. So when that happens, those Republicans in the Senate know that the Senate being the Senate is over. They are the House. It is just who's in power, even by a hangnail. And that means they have everything and the other party has nothing. That is not the way the Senate has worked through history. And frankly, it's really bad for our democracy, because the only place you have a chance to get compromise and lasting policy changes, that's the Senate.
So according to the latest NBC News poll, 52% blame the GOP and Trump, while 42% blame Democrats. 4% blame all parties involved. And Joe, you know, in interviews past, Donald Trump has said it's the president. If there's a shutdown, it's the president who really
He's always said it's the president's fault.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also in that poll, Democrats appear to have an early lead when it comes to next year's fight for control of Congress. 50% of Americans want the Democratic Party to control Congress versus 42% who want Republicans to have full control. As Joe mentioned, roughly 2/3 of voters say the president has failed to meet expectations on the economy. Another 2/3 say he hasn't lived up to expectations when it comes to looking out for the middle class, inflation,
those are just
and the cost of living.
Deadly numbers. I mean, they're just
affordability.
Yeah, they would be for any party, Dave Weigel. I mean, you show right track, wrong track, and then you show these numbers. I don't care if it's for the last Democratic president or the next Democratic president. You don't.
Donald is being returned to the store. Millions of people are quitting the Republican Party and saying, God, I made a mistake buying Donald Trump product back last November, and I want a refund now. And people often forget the quarter term elections, right? Because there's every 4 years, presidential elections get the most attention. And then there's the midterms where the House is reelected and all of that. But every odd numbered year, there are elections. And big states often have pretty important gubernatorial elections that set a bellwether. And what we're seeing in these bellwethers is that the Democrats are winning. And not only are they winning in places where maybe they wouldn't be expected to win, they're also winning in places they would win by probably a little bit more than they should, indicating Donald's in trouble. And this is in addition to the fact that, as we've seen, Democrats have a turnout advantage now, right? When elections have lower turnout and midterm elections have lower turnout and quarter-term elections have even lower turnout, that's bad news for the governing party usually, and specifically for whatever party is at that time the low turnout party. But people are saying, I want a refund. I'm done with the Republican Party, because I went to them not because I loved the GOP, but because I wanted change. And it's a two-party system. Two-party systems are bad, honestly, but it's a two-party system. And so if I got to go to the other guy. And Trump promised me lower prices at the grocery store, at the gas pump, and all of that. And he promised me the government would take care of me and my family by making my life cheaper. And he failed on both fronts. Prices have gotten worse, and they've gotten worse because of his tariff policy. And then also, he took the money that he could have used to lower healthcare premiums and save working class people a few bucks here and there. He took that money and gave it all to the billionaire class. And then he turned around and said, not only am I not going to make your healthcare cheaper and whatnot, a promise that he made all the way back in 2015, I'm going to make your premiums go up $3,000, $4,000 a month in some cases. So the voters have said, Donald, you made two promises to me that really mattered.